Is now called to order. This is the Education, Youth, and Family Services Committee meeting for January 14th, 2026. I am the chair, Council Member at Large Letitia Bracey. At this time, I will call the roll for those members of the committee first. Councilman Alexander Hackett, Councilwoman Michelle Harley,
Present.
Councilwoman Yolanda McCoy,
Here.
Councilwoman Xanthia Oliver, Councilman Kobe Owens, and President Trippy Congo. As a friendly reminder, only members of the committee should be making motions and seconding. And we will proceed to the agenda. The first item is a resolution approving Mayor Carney's appointment of 2 members to the Wilmington Ethics Commission. And I see there's someone here from the mayor's office to speak to that. You have the floor.
Perfect. Is this on? Perfect. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being willing to sponsor this resolution. Just really quickly, all it does is it appoints Robert Katzenstein and James McLean Jr. to the City Ethics Commission. On behalf of the mayor, we want to thank Melvin Phillips and Charles Tolliver for serving on the commission for 2 terms, and these 2 individuals will be, assuming that City Council consents to their confirmation, then we will go ahead and appoint them to a 4-year term.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the council members? Okay, seeing none, this will be on the next council meeting's agenda. So,
perfect. Thank you.
All right. Next up is updates from the Office of Educational Advocacy presented by Dr. LaRetha Odumosu, who is our director.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay. Good evening. So I wanted to come and make sure that I'm providing updates regarding what's happening with the Office of Educational Advocacy. A lot of this the council members will be familiar with since there was a pretty detailed December email that was sent, so you all have this information, but I wanted to make sure that the public is also aware of everything that's happening with the office. And this can also be found in the 6-month impact report. So if it sounds familiar, it's because you've heard a lot of it. And then I'll also project out the focus for the office for the next few months. Next slide. So just as a reminder, the Office of Educational Advocacy exists to unify the educational landscape in Wilmington, amplify the voices of families, educators, and community organizations, influence legislation and policy decisions that will impact Wilmington students. And since this is the first year of the office's existence, it's still in the beginning stages, a part of the mission right now is to also build a sustainable long-term infrastructure for advocacy on behalf of the city so that the office can be successful from years to come. Next slide. So the office has focused in 4 primary ways in order to advance these 4 efforts: coalition building, information sharing, policy engagement, and infrastructure building. So when we're looking at coalition building, that's focusing on building bonds, relationships, and partnerships with educators, families, community organizations, and policymakers. Information sharing key information with families and educators, and also creating spaces where community members and families can share experiences and learn together. Policy engagement, which I think is key for the office, since part of the impetus for the office starting was to ensure that the office had, or that Wilmington had a voice in Dover. So that policy engagement is key, engaging and building trusting relationships with legislators, legislative staff, and ultimately influencing education legislation that impacts the city. And then, as I shared, infrastructure building, because the office is in novice stages, to make sure that the office has a strong foundation for the future. So I'm going to do a quick deep dive into each of those sections and spend a little bit more time on why this is important for the foundational pieces of the office. So with redistricting and coalitions, a lot of council was very involved with redistricting efforts, specifically that final vote in December. So I do want to just say thank you to all the city council members who participated in that effort, whether it was showing up at the meeting, whether it was writing a letter, whether it was showing up online. I know there are several folks online. The city of Wilmington really created and presented a unified front. during that meeting. And it really shows that how strong we can be when we're all on the same page and when we're all working together. So just kudos to City Council for supporting that effort and being a part of that conversation. I think we all know how important this is for the city of Wilmington to consolidate. So Reading, with redistricting, I was involved, or OEA was involved with a lot of those committee meetings that led up to that final vote, and will continue to be involved as the plan is being drafted currently. Coalition building really focuses on raising that strategic support, and the office has focused with the Wilmington Interagency Collaboration, which you're all familiar with. It consists of the Wilmington Learning Collaborative, Reading Consortium, Wilmington Center for Education, Equity, and Policy, the City Council, and Mayor's Office. And that is a coalition of groups that are focused on improving outcomes for the city, for students in the city of Wilmington. So far, we've had 10 full meetings plus about 5 to 10 additional planning meetings. So we have gotten to know each other really, really well, as Councilwoman Bracy can attest to. And I want to emphasize that this is important because OEA doesn't officially have formal authority over schools and education. So the only authority that the Office of Educational Advocacy will have is creating moral authority. And in order to create moral authority, that's why it's important for educators and agencies to band together to provide that collective force and collective effort. So that's why coalition building is so important in this space, because there is not a formal authority. We have to create that moral authority, and that's what results in doing that, to gain influence and to support and willing collaboration with the schools and with the school communities. So alongside those same efforts, stakeholder engagement, which, as many of you know, I came in and that was a big focus in the beginning months to make those direct connections. So this is just an update on where we are with that. So stakeholder engagement. So stakeholder meetings been about over 100 meetings. The family engagement tour connected with a lot of families through that. So that was about 350 direct connections. The OEA introduction luncheon, about 20 policymakers really focusing on the Wilmington delegation and their staff. Bridging the Gap Expo, we had 22 community organizations present. And then through the meetings that were hosted by the Wilmington Interagency Collaboration, we had about 100 participants. Again, why is this important? When we are building relationships, and just on the basis form of building relationships, one contact doesn't necessarily result in you having influence and you having say. So it is a timeline and a effort that you have to put in order to build strong connections. But when we build those direct connections, it results in change and impact and influence. I think it's really exciting that we've been able to connect with over 600 and have over 600 connections within the first beginning months. Normally, when you're looking at nonprofits and community organizations, they are celebrating if they connected with 100 stakeholders. So to have connected with 600 in such a short period of time is really, really exciting. Just a quick overview, again, events that you all are familiar with, but some community engagement efforts that have happened. The Family Engagement Tour, which took place in August and September. The OEA Introduction Luncheon, which took place in October. The Bridging the Gap Community Expo, which took place in November. And then those 5 redistricting communication meetings that took place throughout October and November. And again, looking at why is that important? It's important to connect and inform the community. So that's why OEA is leading the charge and either hosting a meeting, hosting an event, so that we can build those connections and build that communication with the family members and with the community. Our other community engagement outreach is using our social media platforms. So as you all know, that started in July, I believe. We kicked off with our first platforms. We now have a website, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, and we have TikTok. So the early efforts, you'll see where those numbers were. Our current update, we started at maybe having 5,000 views, and we ended the calendar year with about 30,000 views. So we did see significant growth with our social media efforts. I will say that the podcasts have really supported in driving that. We've really driven views to the social media channels through those reels from the podcast. Event participation and presence. So again, this is just kind of a quick list of the different activities and events that OEA has been present at. Because we're a new office, it's really important to have visibility. It's really important to make sure that people are aware that the office is there. So we are just taking advantage of as many opportunities as possible to share what is happening with OEA, to share what OEA is focusing on, to share that we're here. So that's just a quick list of all the events that we have been in attendance at, and then the speaking engagements within those events were about 11.
I'd like to acknowledge Councilman Kobe Owens, and I think I saw Councilwoman Oliver. I'd like to acknowledge Councilwoman Oliver as well.
Thank you.
So jumping into policymaker engagement, again, this information is likely familiar to all the council members. So this information really is so that the public is aware, but policymaker engagement, making sure that we are a part of all of those legislative conversations. We've been engaging in recurring meetings with the DOE, specifically Secretary of Education Cindy Martin, as well as her Chief of Staff, Dr. Saylor. We've been joining Secretary Martin and her team on visiting the schools in Wilmington, focusing on CSI schools. CSI schools are basically defined as the schools that fall into the lowest 5 percentile of performance across the state of Delaware. There are 4 schools that are ranked as CSI in the city of Wilmington. So, I'm joining Secretary Martin in those visits. We're in classrooms. We're engaging in conversations with the school leaders. We're talking about their improvement plans, and being able to have that one-on-one contact with the schools that are performing the lowest in the city is significant. Also, engaging in upcoming education legislation. Generally, or typically, the House of Representatives is traditionally heavily focused on education. So we're looking to see what education legislation will continue to come out. There was just a bill that was passed just the other day. This session, as you know, has started this week. I believe they just passed a bill on cell phone policies for schools. So that was a continuation, I believe, of conversations that had happened last session. So everything is getting kicked off with the legislative season now. So this will include a bit of shift in schedule in terms of spending time in Dover. I know Councilwoman Bracey is going to join me, hopefully on some of those meetings, to the Education Committee and the Senate Committee and House Committee Education when they're hosting them, and the school visits will continue. So again, why is this important? We're connecting with the schools, and the focus is school improvement. So being in the schools, visiting classrooms, having key discussions regarding how to improve schools is where improvement begins. And then also it's important for OEA to build the foundation so that Wilmington does have a say in the legislation that's coming out of Dover. Ultimately, we want to have a say before it's written. By the time it's written and drafted, sometimes it could be a little too late. So you want to have conversation, you want to have impact in that process. So just a summary of the numbers that I've gone over. I don't think I need to read through all of them, but 30,000 connections made through social media. I do want to highlight 150 direct stakeholder connections, because last time I presented to council, that number was at 16. So the Bridging the Gap Community Expo, even though we would love to have the place packed out, it actually did result in a number of connections being made. That number was increased literally by us going back to the community organizations and saying, how many people did you connect with? How many people did you sign up? And that number went from 16 to 150 plus. I believe it was 143 connections that were made at that event. So that was exciting. We want to continue to build on that. And then also the community events, which I've already referenced, giving feedback for legislation that is either pending or in draft form, and then forming the coalition. So big picture, the office is gaining momentum, gaining visibility. In the beginning, I was the one reaching out to every possible stakeholder to say, hey, let's meet, let's talk. At this point, it's about one-to-one. I think I put 30 to 40%. It's probably about 50% of meetings now are happening because people are reaching out to the office. So it's not just the office reaching out there. The feeling is becoming mutual with folks reaching out to the office to engage in participating on their panels or sharing feedback or giving feedback to or giving steps and action steps to community members who are dealing with very specific scenarios within their schools and with their children. So it's about 50% of those meetings now are happening because people are reaching out to the office. So just other examples of momentum and visibility. I was asked to be a part of a subcommittee engagement group through Reading. The Reading leadership did request that the Wilmington Interagency Collaboration host additional meetings. So we hosted the first few, and they were so successful that we were asked to add on more meetings to support with sharing redistricting awareness. I already spoke about the community organizations and joining the Secretary of Education. We were asked to participate in the DOE literacy announcement. I've been asked to participate with education panels and presenting to school and community organizations. And I was really, really pleased to receive an Education Advocacy Award in December. So that was a surprise, and I was really, really, I counted it a privilege to be counted amongst that group of honorees. So types of advocacy, I know this comes up a lot, so I did want to spend just a little bit of time talking about advocacy, because there are different types, and this is not an exhaustive list of advocacy. I just chose the two that we're engaging in, and the one that I think is the most relevant for this conversation. But generally, and just to zoom out, I think when people think of the word advocacy, or at least, years ago when I thought about the word advocacy, I thought of Tamika Mallory, right? Like, she was my key person for advocacy, and she's an amazing advocate. And I know Councilman Owens has engaged in a lot of advocacy as well. So you think rallies and bullhorns and different aspects, but those who engage in advocacy, as you know, Councilman Owens, there's a number of strategic steps that take place. Ultimately, you want to reach the goal of whatever type of advocacy you're doing. So I'm just sharing 3 different types of advocacy today: education advocacy, legislative advocacy, community advocacy. And as you'll see, there's different goals of each. So when you're looking at education advocacy, the goal is to ensure that every student has access to quality education. So that can include, this is not an exhaustive list, but that can include addressing inequalities or inequities in education. That includes improving education quality. It includes influencing education policy, supporting teachers, supporting leaders, supporting districts. The pipeline, it can go in so many directions, but ultimately the goal of education advocacy is ensuring that every student has access to quality education. Legislative advocacy is different. That is when you want to influence the process of some type of legislation that will either be coming out or a vote that's going to take place. So your ultimate goal is to influence the outcome of that legislative process. Community advocacy, which I think is probably the one most people are familiar with, is to actively promote or defend a cause or issue that impacts a certain group of people, or to drive social change. So they all have different goals. A lot of times you'll see intersection between different types of advocacy, but ultimately the type of advocacy that you're doing will take different steps depending on what goal you're seeking to achieve. So when you're looking at education advocacy, and again, sometimes these steps can be fluid, but big picture, education advocacy, you're informing and educating. You're engaging with key stakeholders, leveraging existing relationships. Ultimately, you want to transform systems. So large systems that need to change so that you can improve the quality of education. So one type of education advocacy that we all just engaged in is the redistricting effort. That would change the redistricting, that would change the district governing lines. That's a system, a full-wide system that ultimately would impact the students. So that was an example of us engaging in education advocacy. Legislative advocacy, and it says set goals and identify priorities. I would say that that's really a target from no matter what advocacy you're doing, you have to have goals and priorities. But you're building coalitions, you're researching and understanding the key issue, you're engaging with lawmakers, and you're creating a strategy that will result in the outcome for the issue you've identified. And then again, when you're looking at community advocacy, identifying the issue, you're defining those goals, you're communicating effectively and mobilizing support, things of that nature. So the steps look slightly different based off of the outcome that you want to have. I did share the resources because I'm a data dork, so I like to share where I get the information from. But ultimately in phase 1, the Office of Educational Advocacy has focused on education advocacy and legislative advocacy. So that's where we live. So that's why you see a lot of the steps have been informing and educating, identifying key issues, engaging with lawmakers, engaging with key stakeholders, focusing on long-term goals. That's been the focus for phase 1. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and this is just projecting out and something for this committee to discuss, as well as City Council overall to discuss in terms of the infrastructure for the future of the Office of Educational Advocacy. So not something that would be happening in January 2026, but when you're thinking about the future of this office and the direction for it to take, this is a suggestion or a proposed future structure that I'm providing to the City Council. So I'll go over administration records and data because no matter what structure happens, there's always going to have to be an administrative aspect, right? So documenting, record keeping, scheduling, event hosting, things of that nature. Social media management would be a key part of that administrative portion because we have used social media as a communicator to the community. The other two blocks are the areas that I really would like you all to kind of think about and give feedback on, with the two arms that I'm proposing that the Office of Educational Advocacy sustain: a community engagement branch and a legislative branch. Community should absolutely impact what the legislative goal is. However, the way they operate and the way they engage are two separate directions. So community engagement, you're thinking about focusing solely on connecting with community organizations, educators, families. Every school has its own parent council. Every school has its own event. We have 10 schools, traditional schools in the city of Wilmington, and that's not even including the charter schools and the private schools. We still have 4 school districts. We have 11,000 students. We have 70,000 residents. So there's a lot within the community that's happening. We have over 100 community organizations. So there's a lot of engagement that needs to happen internally within the city of Wilmington from the Office of Educational Advocacy. We want to build collaborative teams, build connections, things of that nature. On the other hand, the legislative branch would be focusing more on engaging with the 62 General Assembly members, making sure that there are sponsors for potential legislation that can come up, being aware and building those relationships. This person would be, or this department would focus on participating in task force, participating in commissions, participating in roundtables. I'm joining a roundtable, education roundtable discussion for the state next week. That legislative branch would focus on that area. So it's really, while they speak to each other and they work in concert together, it's really two different branches that I would propose that the future of the office consists of, and just want to present that to you all for something to think about for the future. And then finally, in terms of January and February, as I shared, the phase 1 is focusing on education advocacy and legislative advocacy. So you'll see there with the education advocacy, the focus will be with the CSI schools, with the monthly school visits with Secretary Martin, maintaining those partnerships with school districts, keeping the community informed regarding consolidation efforts and how they can engage. The legislative advocacy focus will be on the legislative aspect of the Public Funding Education Commission, as well as the district consolidation plan, continuing with convening and facilitating Wilmington interagency collaboration, continued engagement with the Wilmington delegation. As I shared, that unifying force is really where the power and the voice comes for the city of Wilmington. So the more we're saying the same thing, the bigger of an impact it has when we're going to Dover, when we're requesting things, when we're building those relationships, and when we're wanting to engage in conversation. So unity is key. And then also beginning initial partnerships. I've been able to already be in contact with a number of the Wilmington delegation members, but now the focus is building the contact and the relationships with the rest of the 62 General Assembly members. So that will be the focus for January and February. Obviously, legislative season goes throughout July, so that legislative focus will remain. Both of them will probably remain the same, but definitely that's where the bulk of time will be spent for the next few months. And that is the end. Any questions?
I have a couple of quick questions. Thank you for this thorough presentation. Could you just, for the record and for anyone that might be listening, list the 4 CSI schools, the lowest performing schools, and if you know what district they're in, that'd be also helpful.
Yes. 2 of them are CSIR, which means that they're on the list for a second time around. I don't want to specify which one is CSIR or not because I'm not sure, but the 4 schools would be Bayard, Pritchett, both which are in Christina, and then Warner and Johnson, both of them which are in Red Clay.
Okay. And I know you said you've been going with Secretary Martin to visit those schools. So are you also engaged with like trying to understand what the improvement plan or what the timelines are going to be for?
Yes, I have access to the CSI improvement plans. The CSI improvement plans, I actually had feedback for DOE for those plans. I think they're very bulky. It's very kind of hard, difficult to kind of lean in. But yeah, so I do have access to the plans. They are, from my understanding, running plans. So it's not a plan with outcomes that will definitely happen within this school year. They give a few years for them to, last year was the planning year for the plan. This year is the first year of implementation. I'm not sure the length of time. I believe it's like a 2 to 3 year kind of plan turnaround with benchmarks each year.
Okay. And then my second question, before I open it up to our council members, is on your suggestion for the ideal office structure, thank you for putting these suggestions and being proactive about what your thoughts are. But in the meantime, while this goes into a deeper discussion with council, how can you deploy council members to do some of that community engagement? I'm thinking specifically about our district council members who are at community civic association meetings every month. The at-larges that sometimes support them at those civic association community events. So think about, and you might not be able to answer this right now, but how you can use us as we're out in the community to also kind of echo the message around education or have the talking points that you're trying to get out, or when we're engaging with families or parents or community centers, because there's, Councilman Owens has community centers, and I know in his district, and I know both Councilman Oliver and McCoy. So, and there's, and there's schools in Harley's, like all of us have a piece of this that, you may be able to use us for. So, like I said, you might not be able to answer that right now, but think about how you can deploy us as we're out. That's part of our job, is to be out in the community. So some of that community engagement, and while we're thinking, longer term for the bigger picture, you may be able to use us for, and that would help, solidify the messaging.
That's great. And I do have an answer now. So I have, so there is specifically around the redistricting, and I'll resend it, but there's a Make Your Voice Heard flyer, one pager that I put together that provides a script. It provides hyperlinks, so you would have to send it digitally, but hyperlinks to how people can find their state legislators, how they can identify who their representatives are. And ultimately right now in that redistricting coalition space, it's really sending letters right now, so letter campaign. So you can absolutely use that at any civic association or share it on your social media pages. I also share with council, and I'm happy to resend 1-pagers and 2-pagers around what the Office of Educational Advocacy is doing, so that can be shared freely. So again, posting, sharing it during civic associations, so we can print out some on our end just so that we can provide council members with stacks. But I think the biggest piece right now is just spreading the word about OEA and its existence, and specifically with redistricting, there's that 1-pager that shares how folks can participate in that.
Thank you. Do any other council members have questions or comments? Councilwoman Oliver?
Yeah, hold on, I'm trying to get my, okay, thank you. Madam Chair, my question is, what is the support that's being given to the CSI schools, and what are the attendance rates? Because I didn't hear that.
Attendance rates of the students. Hi, Councilwoman Oliver, just a clarifying question. Attendance rates of the students or attendance rates of the school visits?
I think we lost her.
Okay. So yes, so I'll answer the support question. So they actually are receiving a lot of support. A lot of the feedback that the secretary has been giving recently is to streamline the support, because it's almost the idea of if you're an athlete and you have 5 different coaches coaching you on 5 different things, it's really hard to get improvement. So all of those CSI schools actually, well, specifically within Christina, I'm joining the ones for Red Clay this month, so I can't speak as much about them. I'll know more next month. But for Christina, there are layers of support. So TNCP is supporting the schools. DOE, I believe, has a coach there. They have internal coaches. Learning Focus has a coach. So there's a lot of support. And a lot of the feedback right now is streamlining the support so that school district leaders aren't getting pulled in multiple directions. It's important for them to be able to make progress specifically in one area or 2 areas at a time. So they have a lot of external support, a lot of expertise that's coming in.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilman Owens?
Yes. First off, thank you for the presentation. I I have a few questions. I guess my first one would be, what has your engagement been with the school-based family liaisons in schools? And that position may look a little different based off the school district. I know for Brandywine, they have them in both the schools.
Yes. So Brandywine, I've worked with them at the district level. So they have a community liaison at the district level who I've worked with a couple of times. The school-based, I've met the school-based liaisons. So they are hosting through WLC. So there's the, community in schools. I don't want to misnomer them, but there's a community group that WLC has worked with, and actually Ajay can speak to it more, but there's a community group that they have specific people who are working with the parent councils. So I have connected with them during the family, I did connect with them during the family engagement tour. Yep.
And
I'm sorry, somehow I got disconnected. Oh, I'm sorry, Kobe, I'm sorry.
sorry, just a quick follow-up, Chair. You were talking about the pending legislation that's coming up. Do you have a living document that has some of the pending legislation and can?
I don't. No, I don't. So some of it, the pending legislation that I've engaged with is completely in draft form. It's not going to even be on the docket for 2026. So this information should be coming out soon, probably within January and February. I know Dr. Kendra will be supporting with sharing that information with me as well so that I'm not missing it. But I don't have a running draft of what's going to come out yet. Yeah.
Can I just follow up? When it's still in draft form, if it's like different concepts that they're talking about, is it a way that we can get updated on that as well?
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. That's it.
Any other council members have questions? I know Councilwoman Oliver was trying to get back on.
Okay, there she is.
I didn't have a. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Okay, somehow I hit the button. Did you hear the question I asked from the beginning regarding the CSI students and what's the grades look like? What work is being done with the CSI students?
Yes. So the schools that are identified as CSI have a number of coaching supports that are working with them. TNTP is an organization called the New Teacher Project out in Philadelphia. So they're providing coaching, they're providing data analysis support. They're also working with Learning Focus, and then Secretary of Education Cindy Martin is also providing some additional support through her monthly visits. So they actually have a number of supportive groups that are working with them.
Councilwoman McCoy?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I just actually wanted to state that I got a chance to talk to Dr. O recently, and she was able to bring me up to date on some of the events and activities that were already happening in my area. I did get a chance to not only speak with her, but to connect with Dr. Lawrence, who I plan to have a meeting on Friday. So I do see some movement. I am glad to be able to state that, I was able to connect and then find out some information, but it's just starting. Just put it that way. I just want to say that things are just starting, and and that we are definitely going to have to be as involved as possible to try to make any real changes.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other council members have comments, questions?
Yes, Madam Chair, my follow-up.
Yes.
I was wondering, has Dr. O made contact with J Street, any other statewide advocacies, such as Jerry, Devin? Has she been in contact with any of the other individuals who, work as advocacies for our youth in the city of Wilmington?
Yes, I've been in contact with several of the advocates. Ms. Ray Jones Avery is a part of our Wilmington interagency collaboration and has been guiding from the space of being the head of the Neighborhood Schools Act, which which started kind of that big conversation around consolidation years ago. So have been able to be in frequent contact with her. And I know, I'm in great contact with Helen Anderson, a number of advocates throughout the city of Wilmington.
Have you been in contact with Devin? And I'm asking that question because most kids who have CIS issues, I refer them to Devin, and he has been able to advocate for them, kids with disabilities, EIPs, things of that nature. I just wanted to have you had a chance to even have a conversation with him.
I already have an existing relationship with Mr. Henson. I've known him for years, and he's also on the Red Clay School Board. Just a quick clarifying point, though. CSI are the schools that are performing the lowest in the state. And
Right.
Mr. Henson, I know, has a history of working with students who have IEPs and 504s, so
Correct.
special education, and also with Shannon Griffin. So I know Mr. Henson and Shannon Griffin work closely together. So they are also a group that if I have parents who need support with students with IEPs, that I know I can refer them to them.
Okay. That would be the area that I'm concerned with, because sometimes we go to these meetings, we attend all this stuff, we give reports, and then our kids who look like us still have the lowest rates of attendance, grades, etc. So sometimes things look good on the outside, but on the inside, they don't look good. And I'm only speaking from experience because I worked at McKean High School. I worked at Gauger. I worked at several, Mr. Pridgett, Bancroft at the time. And a lot of it is parent engagement. And I'm going to have a meeting with Mr. Henson, with some parents, because that is a piece that's missing. So I do plan on connecting with you so you can attend that meeting. But thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Owens?
Yes, just actually following up off of what Councilwoman Oliver said, would it be beneficial for us to have a coordinated meeting with all the school district reps that represent the city of Wilmington, with Wilmington representation as well too from the state and from city council?
I think we should join the efforts that are happening with that already, because a lot of that, and Ms. English can speak to it, a lot of that joining happens through the WLC already. So I think it would probably be a good use of time for us to join the meetings that are happening already instead of trying to schedule something else, because it's almost the same people being brought into these different meetings. But I agree. I do think it would be beneficial for us to join the WLC's meetings. I believe it's on, I don't want to misquote, I know it's on Wednesdays, but I'm not sure which Wednesday it is. But joining those meetings and being a part of that process, because they're already working with all the city schools.
I was thinking more in the line of us coordinating efforts,
Okay.
Right.
where city council has more of a say for the external student lifestyle, right? And the state and the school board members have more of the internal power there as well too. So just having a across the board roundtable meeting of the minds type thing, not talk about redistricting. Well, of course, talk about redistricting, but just getting us all on the same page of where we can be beneficial for one another. And that goes, like, one of my things is some of the biggest barriers that we face as well too is that the legislative bodies have been so disconnected over the years. So it causes a lot of, we don't know what they're doing, we don't know what they're doing, we're trying to do our own thing, and then students get lost in the gap, right?
Agreed.
And I guess my next question is, has your office identified some of the greatest barriers that this current iteration of city council can start working on when it comes to student success, right? So we know we may not be able to dictate curriculum, but what can we work on outside of that currently, or start working on, or working towards a solution for?
Absolutely. So there was, and I believe I included it in a communication. If not, I'll send it to you. But the American Institute for Research did conduct the social driver study, and that really focused more on what policies could be put in place. Not all of them are, city policies. Some of them are state policies as well, but what policies could be put in place specifically looking at social drivers that impact students outside of education. The 4 that were identified were mental health, transportation, housing, and, I'm blanking on the 4th. Okay. Public safety. Yes, thank you so much. So I think that would be a good place to start, because that did include students' feedback that was most recently done. It was just done in 2025, so it gives us really up-to-date information, and it has some recommendations in there. So I think it would be helpful for us to sit down and look through that study and see what areas the city council can support with, and some of it might just be what are areas that the state can support with, and we try to push the state to do that. But I think that'll be a great starting point.
Thank you for that.
I have a last question.
Councilwoman Oliver.
Yeah, thank you so much for this presentation. But lastly, I was concerned about, I'm looking at the literature that's going out for office advocacy, but I don't see City Council's logo on there, which I received a call about because this is through City Council. So, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a suggestion that when literature go out, I'd like to see a logo of City Council on there because this is through City Council. This is our effort. This is us talking to the president, putting in the budget. And to me, I have to agree with the calls I received. It looks strange just to see a logo and you don't see City Council. So I would like to see a City Council logo on anything that's going out for the Office of Education Advocacy. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other comments or questions from council
No, I'm
members?
done.
Any questions from the public? Seeing none, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Well, I'll second. This meeting has been adjourned. Thank you all.